welcome back to the Today with Tally podcast. Folks, we have a great show in store for you today. We sit down with a mental health specialist. Krista is an outspoken advocate, program director, and trainer focusing on mental wellness, safety, and relationships for our military and first responder families with a focus on critical children's issues, critical response needs, and tactical support in times of crisis. She is unafraid to tear down structures and systems that devalue military and responders' lives. And with that, we are honored to be joined by Krista Fee. How are you, ma'am?
I am wonderful.
Good.
So awesome to be here.
Awesome. Well, it's great to have you here. So you are deep into the mental health game. What got you involved in mental health and dealing with crisis events?
It's actually a really long journey, and a lot of the listeners that know me have probably already heard my story, but I was born into human trafficking. My mother was trafficked, and I then ended up in the system. So I was adopted. I was one of the lucky ones. I've always been really drawn to the problem of human trafficking and all the different ways that looks. My healing journey is really what got me into wanting to work with other people who are struggling, though. So when I was in my early 20s, I started looking for ways to recover my life, right? Not to be my trauma, not to live my trauma, but to be more and to empower myself to have everything that I thought I saw everyone else having. And I didn't realize that everyone else had struggles too. So I started educating and volunteering in an emergency room. And I just love people and I love crisis situations. My trauma gave me a gift and a curse that when something nightmarish is happening, I am as calm can be. So I can handle anything. And then I process it afterwards. So it seemed like a natural progression to just go into all the dark places where most people don't want to, or most people can't handle the situation and be highly effective while things are going down.
When you say that you can handle anything and you basically just process it all afterwards, what does that unpacking look like?
Everyone who works in mental health should have their own support team. Anyone who is a therapist that doesn't have a really strong team of therapists behind them and counselors and peers and friends, a big part of that is community. Having the right people around you that you know when you just need to cry or you need to scream or you need to throw things, that they'll be there to do it with you. I'm not afraid to lean in.
Yeah, this is, you got me speechless, with, when you came out and you said that you were born into human trafficking. And as far as I know, I know a lot of folks would probably not come out like that and would probably kind of hold back and maybe just hold secrets forever, because that's very traumatic. And I could see the emotion in that. But as far as I know, I've never met anybody that has been born into human trafficking. Like, what's the story of your mother? Do you know who your mom is?
Yes. Yeah, we reconnected actually in my mid 30s. And she's actually the reason that I know her story, because she wanted to know who her daughter was. And she wanted to show me that she got out of all of that, and that she then at that point was a mother, had adopted a 3-year-old child, and was married and living a healthy life. And she reached out and wanted to find her adopted daughter. So we actually did have a wonderful weekend of reconnection and where I got to hear her story.
How does that happen? Like, how do folks like your mom become trafficked?
Oh my gosh. Trafficking doesn't look doesn't look one way, and it doesn't look the way most people think that it does. In the United States, a lot of women, young women, are trafficked without being stolen, right? They're not kidnapped. They are put into a state of addiction by someone that they think is their boyfriend or someone that they care about. And then they're basically forced into prostitution based on that addiction and the control that it puts over them. So sometimes it looks like they're voluntarily involved in trafficking when really they've been coerced into a state of dependency. And if they try to stop, or if they try to run, or if they try to tell anybody, they disappear, or they get beat up, or they overdose. I mean, it's happening everywhere. But again, there's tons of different forms of trafficking. So for my mother's situation, she was forced into prostitution by someone she thought she was dating.
Incredible. And this is all happening right before our very eyes, all over the country.
Yes.
And yeah, I find it not only just unique, but very courageous, for you to actually enter the line of work that brought so much trauma to your mother. And look, you are a reminder of that. Hey, look, just because you are brought into this world in a way that wasn't, what your mother planned on, you've turned out to be this image of healing. And, man, that's extremely rewarding. And again, I don't have a lot of words here because, I want to come across as being sincere and genuine and empathetic, because I sincerely am. But I mean, I couldn't imagine. Hey, I've got 2 daughters of my own, and I'm very, very vigilant, and I'm always worried about them. But I always tell them, hey, you got to be careful, out there, and you can't be naive to what's going on around you. If somebody is listening right now, what are some tips to perhaps stay out, to ensure that you do not get captured or caught up into this human trafficking?
Well, Battle2Be has a Kid Safe program that we teach, an acronym SAFE. And the really biggest things that we can do as parents is talk to our kids about the risks, talk to our kids about what's happening out there, get really educated about what's happening in your community and what resources are available. The S stands for security and surveillance. And parents hate this because parents want to be their children's friends. And I often have to have the argument that, is your child's privacy more valuable to you than their life? So having security measures where if they leave the house, because there's security cameras on all your doors and windows. You don't necessarily want to invade their private space, but to know when they're exiting the house is really important. Knowing what's happening on their cell phones, on their internet. Most of this happens through some digital device. So it'll be a video game, it'll be a chat room, it'll be some social media aspect. This is where they're meeting people. This is where they're getting connected with the people who are likely to traffic them. And then they'll be tempted to go meet someone somewhere. And a lot of the traffickers are using 20-something-year-old men who are good looking, who can pretend like they're high schoolers, and they'll meet these girls at the mall, and boys too, actually. They'll meet them at the mall and then they disappear. So they're actually talking to a real person. They're just being bait and switched.
So what does the trust factor look like? Like you said, would you rather have your kids, safe, and secure, or be a victim of a horrifying crime? But Of course, your kids are going to say it's not going to happen to me. My mom's, overprotective. She's hyper vigilant. I can't even just be a normal kid anymore. I'm being tracked. I'm being this. I have cameras all over the place. What's the psychology look like with children that are being raised like that?
You start it early and you do it with openness. You tell your children why things are the way they are in your household. You express to them your concerns. You show them the reality of the numbers, of the statistics of the kids. Like everyone says, oh, I don't want to scare my kid. I don't want my kid to be worried about everything that they do. They shouldn't be worried about everything they do, but they should be prepared and they should be aware so that they can make intelligent choices for themselves when they're capable. And you have to make those choices for them when they're not capable. So the honest answer there is, yeah, their peers are going to get away with everything and they're going to think it's not fair at certain stages of their life. But if you start when they're 5 years old and you teach them situational awareness and you talk to them about risks and you show them who in their neighborhood is on the sex registry and to stay away from that person, show them the picture and say, don't go near this person. If this person comes and talks to you, run away and hide. I rarely find parents who have ever shown even 12 and 13-year-olds the sex registries in their neighborhoods. And all you have to do is go online and look that up. It is available in any community who is on the sex offender registry in your neighborhood.
Where do you find that? What's the website for that?
It's different wherever you are. So just do a Google search on neighborhood sex registry and it will pop up for you. And message me if you can't find it, and I will help you find yours.
I'm going to do that today because I'm just curious now on what that may look like, because you think you're living in Mayberry one day and you find out that, yikes, Mayberry is no longer really in existence, or perhaps it was back in the Leave It to Beaver days, but I think maybe we were told a lie. They want you to think, oh, everything's perfect when it's not.
Oh, it will be shocking. It will be shocking to you. I live in a very middle class, very low crime community. And just on my street alone, which is, typical neighborhood street, 1 in 4 houses a sex offender lives in.
Good. Yeah. Now it's like, do I really want to do this?
I know there is always that balance of, do I really want to know? But wouldn't you rather be able to show your teenager that this is a house you don't go into no matter what? Like, no matter what someone says, do not go into that house.
I'm such a protector, though. I think if I were to find out all that stuff, I would be like SWAT surveillance, like, okay, yeah, I'm up. He's leaving the house or she's leaving the house right now. Oh my gosh. And again, I mean, like there's like, I always tell my daughters, keep me out of prison.
Mm-hmm.
Please do your best to keep me out of prison. Because I've already said it. If anything were to happen to those girls, it's over.
Yeah.
Because I don't do bad people very well. Evil is something that I just cannot, I just can't do it. Evil. And I would say, hey, go out and have a great time, but just keep me out of jail. I'm just an honest guy.
I'm not a political person, but hopefully we'll see a little bit harder on crime.
Yeah.
Things coming into play in the near future. So we should actually be seeing less of these predators out on the street and more of them off the streets where they belong.
You're absolutely right. Our country has become lawless, and they are rewarding criminals. These folks are out committing heinous crimes and destroying the lives of their victims and whoever loves those people. And they're being slapped on the hand and let out by reckless and ruthless DAs that continue to create more victims by letting out these dangerous predators. And it makes my blood boil because we pay good money in our taxes to ensure that we have safety and security. That's their job, is to protect the people. And when they're not protecting the people get involved, and that's where things, typically will go sideways. And to my point, I tell my girls to keep their dad out of jail. Because hey, look, there's nothing more in this world I love more than my babies. So, but yeah, so starting them off early, and really letting them know that, hey, look, you're loved, and I love you so much that I gotta, keep my eye on you when I'm not with you. Right.
Right. And you empower them. You don't scare them. You show them how they can get out of situations that they find themselves in, how they can. It's just so funny to me that parents are so adverse to a lot of these conversations because they're so afraid their children will be scared to death and they won't want to do anything. And we really do take the approach that a child that is situational aware, that knows how to make smart decisions, that knows what the risks are, is a child that is empowered to survive in this world, and a child that is unafraid to live in this world. And I think overprotecting them is actually the pathway to children who are afraid and who are ineffective and who don't know how to survive. We don't do them any services by overprotecting them without giving them the tools and resources to defend and protect themselves.
You've been doing this a very long time, and you sit down with a lot of folks with a lot of trauma to unpack. Do you ever hear of some of these kids just completely rebelling because of the decisions that their parents have made to protect them in ways that others would say, oh, wow, that's, those are boundaries?
We usually only see actual rebellion and a lack of understanding from kids if it comes in really late. If it's okay, your 14-year-old is now doing all this stuff and you can't control them and you're really nervous, so you start saying, I'm going to take your phone at night, or I want to see all of your text messages because you have this suspicion that something's going on or that they're getting in trouble and they're with the wrong people. Well, when your kid is 12 to 14 years old is not the time. It's not the time to completely change the rules on them. So it's very, very important that you start off early. Now, it's never too late to have the conversation, but expect if you're having the conversation for the first time at 12 to 14, it's not going to go very well. Because they've established that identity of privacy. They believe they're entitled to this huge level of privacy that you've created for them. Children don't expect that if you didn't create that for them.
Yep. And that's where they say, well, you don't trust me. And then that's when they start to look for trouble, if you will. It's like, I've always just loved on all four of my kids so much that they don't ever have to go anywhere to look for love. I've loved my family unconditionally, forever. And that I think is very, very important. But, me and my wife, I would say that we're kind of old fashioned when it comes to like the nuclear family, like eating together and doing everything together and going out and supporting each other in their events and sports and daily activities and so on and so forth. And I think our country as a whole has really neglected that nuclear family, and everybody just seems to be spending a lot more time either by themselves or on their phone away from human interaction.
Yeah, absolutely. And you touched on a really important point there. Your children don't have to go seeking love and affection. That is one of the biggest risk factors for falling into that dynamic that we were talking about earlier. The girls that are falling into it and the boys that are falling into it because they're looking for something. So creating that, you're going places with your kids, you're seeing who is around them. You know who their coaches are, you know who their teammates are, you know the parents of their friends. You're already you're already falling into the second part, the awareness of where your kids are and what they're doing, because you're invested and you're involved in their lives. So that is literally the second piece of keeping your kids safe.
It just makes me so happy to know that my kids surround themselves with good kids. And I see it every time that we go out, at a sporting event, or we see them in town, or we get feedback from coaches and so on and so forth. Like, my son is going to a Friendsgiving tomorrow at his baseball buddy's house. They're having all their baseball buddies over, and they're just good kids. And I know oftentimes, because every generation is always, that's a bad generation. The generation you're in, the one below you is always the worst, right? And the one above you is always they were better. Well, I think so many of today's kids get a bad rap when there are so many great kids out there. And, it's just when all they have is bad news on the news, and we get a very small minority of the news that they want you to think and believe is really going on in the country. And I know that that's there to create conflict and division. But when I see my kids and who they hang out with and what their school is putting out education wise, man, I'm a proud father, because there's a lot of kids out there, on the other hand, that aren't surrounding themselves with folks. And I've always told my kids, you are who you roll with. If you want to be successful, hang out with the successful crowd. If you want to be, somebody who's going to be in and out of juvie and go into prison and, slinging dope and doing all the bad stuff, well, go hang out with the gangsters, right? Go hang out with the criminal kids over there that are always getting in trouble. You are who you roll with. And I think that's, I think that's 100% right there, huh?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. The really big challenge is all of us, not just our kids, but kids even more so than adults, is we need to be seen, we need to be heard, and we need to be understood or accepted in some way, shape, or form. So the kids that are out seeking those feelings are the ones who are getting in trouble. And if there's something about them that makes them socially awkward, or they don't know how to ask for their needs in a healthy way, then they ask for their needs in unhealthy ways. Any attention is good attention, right? If you're not getting what you need. So it's really hard to hear the conversation of, oh, the kids are bad. Oh, the kids are lazy. Oh, the kids are this, because the kids are what we've created them to be. Like, we create the environment that lifts them up or holds them down. Which did we do the past 10 to 15 years, right? Did we lift them up and give them a strong foundation and tools and resources that they can use to live a successful life? Or did we, hold them down and restrict them from access to the resources that they needed? And they have been withheld from social problem solving. Our kids right now that went through the COVID pandemic in isolation, they lost years of developing social skills. They don't know how to have an argument with someone without it being a really big deal and an identity changer for them. Like, if you tell me I'm wrong, I'm going to look at you and say, well, I know that I'm right because of this, this, and this. Well, these kids, if you tell me I'm wrong, you just told me that I'm a horrible person and that I have no value, and they take this all internalized. And that's because we haven't created that environment for them. We haven't given them the tools and resources they need to be socially prepared to handle conflict.
So what is the biggest issue that is affecting our today's children?
Identity. We are confusing their identity to such a significant level, and we're giving them all of these things to grasp onto that to them mean identity, when instead of teaching them that their core values and their core wants, needs, and desires are actually what their identity is founded on, and that it is not the labels that we slap on ourselves that creates our identity. They don't know who they are, and they don't know where they're going. And that's a really big challenge on all of the levels, on protecting them from human trafficking, on protecting them from suicide, on keeping the bullying down, on keeping active shooter situations from happening. All of those things come back down to their ability to identify independently and individually outside of all of those labels. You're not an LGBTQ, you're not a transgender, you're not a boy, you're not a girl, you're not a cheerleader, you're not a football player. Those are pieces of who you are, but those are not your identity. And until you know what your core moral values are and your core, what you believe in and what you will die for and what matters most to you, until you know that guidepost, until you have that compass, you're letting everyone else steer your ship.
Would you agree that social media has created this monster?
Social media is a huge part of it.
You know, and I say that because you could come from a great family and have a really bad role model on social media, and they have 10 million followers, so they're basically God. They are basically the person that they're looking to for that validation, and they're getting it from these influencers who are putting out bad information, in my opinion. And that right there is part of the, if you don't love on your kids, somebody else will, and that's not going to end well. And we have so many of our youth that are looking for love and attention in all the wrong places. And that's a good song, by the way. Is that Kenny Rogers?
I think that's in a lot of different songs.
Yeah, exactly. But it is so important because, look, we live in Houston, and it's almost like every 10 minutes my phone goes off for be on the lookout for this child and this child and this child, and this child's missing, endangered. It's like I can't keep up with and right here, just in the greater Houston area, the kids that go missing, it is scary. And a lot of them go missing, like you said, the malls. And that's why I don't let my daughter just go hang out by herself or go even with their friends to the mall unless there's a parent with them.
Yeah. Again, you made a really good point in talking about how they're looking for it from outside themselves. And there's two pieces there that are super important. The family of origin has to love the kids. Like, you've got to build that foundation of love and trust. But the second piece of that is teaching our kids to be self-confident and teaching them to love themselves, and to, when they're feeling down, be able to actually regulate their own nervous systems and be able to calm themselves down. And not, like, we got to teach people to reach out, but we also have to teach them how to reach in and to have an inner strength of their own. And I think that both of those pieces are missing in a lot of our kids right now, in a lot of our families, in a lot of the environments. The schools teach social emotional learning, and the teachers that I talk to, social emotional learning, the idea is fantastic, right? We want to teach our kids how to handle and process their emotions. But when a child's having a big emotion and we separate them from the classroom and tell them that they can go to their safe space, and that's how we're going to have them process their emotions, what we're doing is we're teaching them that their emotions are wrong, and we're teaching them that they can't speak those emotions in public or with other people. And it's catastrophic, right? If we can't express ourselves, if we can't express that we have a different opinion than someone else, I mean, we can look at, again, I'm not supposed to be political, but if we look at this past presidential race, the massive amount of disgusting stuff coming from both sides on social media, the conversations that people were having. You can't even express your opinion without people calling you different names, without people labeling you and judging you and shutting you down, right? Instead of just having a conversation and saying, well, this is what I believe and this is why I believe it. We're saying to people, your opinion doesn't matter. I don't want to hear it. And you can't have it, because if you have that opinion, then you're a horrible, evil person and you need to die. Like, we're literally telling people this. So how are teenagers supposed to have the ability to have a conversation when they don't agree with someone? And then we're putting, like you said, these social media people out there who are telling them what they should think and feel and what is the right thing to do. And they're not allowed to disagree. And if that person has 100,000 followers or 1 million followers, holy heck, we definitely don't disagree with that person, because they must know what's right.
Dude, I've got to give a shout out to one of our show sponsors today, Battle2Be's LLC. Look at that. This right here, folks, is the potion. It's the one drop natural lotion, folks. It smells like pina coladas. Hydrates and moisturizes your skin, makes everything pop. And they even got chapstick. And then to top it off, dude, look at this. Oh yeah. There is not a better product out there right now. They even got stuff for dogs, like their paws and stuff. And the cool thing about Battle2Be's, dude, they're veteran owned. You don't gotta take it from me, dude. Take it from yourself. And I guarantee Bob is so easy to work with. You don't like the product, send them back, he'll probably refund you. But you will not have that problem, folks. Go to BassBrosBees.com. That's BassBrosBees.com. Bass Bro! Yeah! Come on! Their word is gospel. And our kids are confused 100%. Unless they are coming from a loving nuclear type family to where they know the truth, and they know what's synthetic and what's manufactured out there, and the easily influenced are the ones that fall into these traps. They become extremely vulnerable. And like you said, look, I need to go to my safe space. To me, that's teaching our children and our youth to be weak. I mean, could you imagine getting out to the real world and saying, time out, safe space? I mean, look, we'll have a safe space, whether it's in your, say, outdoors when you're on a walk and you want to sit in the grass somewhere, you want to close your eyes and breathe and meditate, or if it's, in a bedroom where you're just alone by yourself and you're, picking up a Bible or whatever those spaces may be. But when you're in a school and you're like, I need a timeout, in emotional health timeout or whatever, I think a lot of those times that, in my opinion, I think at least that we're raising a lot of kids to be weak.
This is a hard one, because all the tools and resources are useful when applied correctly. So, like you said, a safe space is not a bad thing. It's being overused and abused. So what we're doing is we're using it as an answer for everything, and we're teaching conflict avoidance, which, in extreme measures, yes, we want conflict avoidance. We don't want kids that are constantly fighting, right? But we want conflict solution. We want conflict resolution. We want kids that are capable of expressing when they're in distress, and that being okay. Because if the number of parents that I've had coming to me about, especially sexual assaults in schools, and I'm going to call it sexual assault in schools, because even though there are minor incidences at the early phases where we have like a boy who touches a girl and she doesn't like the way that he touched her, he may just put his hand on her back. And I say that as he may just. And because we're in a culture of non-confrontation, it is not okay for that little girl to say, I'm uncomfortable with that. If you do that again, I'm going to do something about it. We're teaching them to sit down and shut up and not to express that they're uncomfortable, because we can't not like someone. We can't say that someone's behavior is inappropriate. We have to accept all of this negative behavior that affects us in a bad way, because and makes us uncomfortable because it's politically correct to do so. So instead of just saying, allowing everyone to express their opinion in a classroom, if a girl is uncomfortable with the way that a boy is talking to her, with the way that a boy is touching her, and the same goes for our boys, and our boys are less likely to express it than the girls are. So our boys are even more vulnerable because they have the emotional aspect of you're not allowed to have emotions either. If you have emotions in public, you're weak. So they even have that additional factor of I'm uncomfortable. If I'm uncomfortable, there's something wrong with me because I'm not supposed to be uncomfortable. We're not letting our children express that they don't like someone. Everybody has to come to the party. Like, we want to teach them to surround themselves with people that make them feel good, with people that bring them joy, that make them want to be better people, right? That's what we as adults get to do. We get to have boundaries and say, this person doesn't make me feel good. I'm not going to keep that person in my life. That's a boundary for me. We're not letting our children set boundaries. We're refusing to allow them to have boundaries because everybody has to be accepted. And all of these things have to have a balance. We don't want to have kids that are not accepted at all. But how do we make sure that they're included in some way that is not damaging psychologically to other children? It's all very complicated.
Yeah. Well, kids these days, they all run in their tribes. Like my son, he hangs out with all the baseball players. They're all together. They're like a family. I mean, so, it's just like how I grew up. You have, the preppies, you got the jocks, you got the stoner crowd, you got the, and it's probably not really changed much. I know when I pick my kids up from school, from high school, I see the same type similarities from, over the decades. And the only thing that's changed is maybe the hairstyles and, the clothes they wear. But other than that, I mean, it's still pretty much very tribal-like, and I want to go back because I wasn't saying safe space as in if, as it were a humiliating type comment, because I understand that you need to feel safe in order to talk and to communicate, especially if you are, a child of abuse or neglect. And I think that that's very important because if they're not going to feel safe and secure, they're not going to talk. I guess what I was talking about more so is like, say, for an example, like in today's Marine Corps in boot camp, a stress card. I was thinking more of the lines like that. I was thinking more of the lines of somebody overusing it and abusing it and kind of, I don't know. It's just.
Oh, I get you. No, I mean, bringing up the military, that's a whole nother conversation around how do we balance that. We know that a lot of our military personnel come out mentally unstable, right? Because we've created this environment where we trash their psychological well-being. And some of that is actually purposeful. Like literally, when you go into the military, you are broken down to become a we instead of a me. And then when they send you home, they kind of forget to reprogram you back to a we. And in a lot of ways, you couldn't even do that anyway, because there's been so much traumatic experience and so much dependence on each other throughout that course that we is very established in people. So when they get home, they have this struggle with identity. Again, identity is really a core piece of so much of our pain and suffering. But the demands of certain jobs require certain preparations. You cannot build a strong military that's going to be fighting battles and be in these like completely uncomfortable environments with no resources, no access to medications and prescription drugs and all kinds of things. Like we could get into a really big conversation about like it's irrational and nonsensical to think that everyone belongs in a military profession. The military requires very particular personalities, very particular capabilities, very particular skill sets. And it is a very huge disservice to water that down and say everyone should just be able to have whatever they want. This is the world we live in right now, and it's completely unattainable, and it can't keep going like this, right?
Mhm.
Because inevitably the skill set diminishes, the quality diminishes when we don't just say this is a very particular skill set, a very particular personality, and we test for these particular things. Only the people that are really excelling at certain qualities can do a certain job. Where did we forget that quality matters, right? And qualities matter. If I don't have the personality to be a therapist, or I don't have the ability to handle stressful situations, do I belong in a firefighting position if I can't run into the fire and save someone? If I'm going to panic every time I see something, well, it's the same thing. If you don't have the skill set, you don't belong doing any given job. And somewhere along the way, we decided that it's more important what statistics we show on paper than it is to have the best qualified individuals doing the job that they are best qualified to do and that they love and want to do. Because if you don't love it and want to do it and have the skill set, you don't belong there.
I 100% put the right person in the job, not the one that you're just looking over an application and just checking boxes. We need to put the best of the best into these positions, just like in the military. Folks, this ain't a fashion show. I mean, this is national security. We need to train war fighters, not become the next, who's who in the National Enquirer or the Cosmopolitan magazine. We need to fill roles with those qualified individuals who can fill them and perform the duties that is required of the job. Yes. And I 100% agree with you on that. And I'm going over your bio right now, and you talk about that you are unafraid to tear down structures and systems that devalue military and responder lives. Can you explain that one to me?
Oh, yes. I'm a very outspoken advocate for our individuals' mental health and wellness. And we have a lot of systems in place that a lot of money is going into. And those systems have had a very long time to prove a track record. Right? There's a lot of nonprofits too. I attack nonprofits regularly, and I have a nonprofit, but we have a nonprofit that we believe that 100% of your income should be going to the end users, and that, administrative salaries should never be more than the median of the area. Like, we have a really strict set of rules as to what we believe nonprofit means. Now, there's multi-billion-dollar nonprofits out there who sell on military suffering, who sell on suicide. And we hear the number all the time. It's an inaccurate number, but 22 a day is not even true anymore. And 22 a day was just active service at the point that number came out. And like, the numbers are really double that or more, and people don't even report. So like, we're really talking about 44 plus people a day. And I'm not actually talking about Mission 22 when I say there's a lot of bad nonprofits out there. Because I use that number, I don't want you to think I'm talking about them. But again, they say that they're out there to solve the problem of military suicide. What are they doing to solve the problem? Are they talking about the problem? Because a lot of these organizations that say they're there for advocacy, what are they doing? They talk about it. They go and raise funds at events about it. But if you ask them about what's causing it, and what are they doing about it, most of the people at those events can't answer you. They just talk about that number and they say, we're bringing awareness. Okay, well, awareness is absolutely stupid. We all know that number. We've all heard the marketing. We've seen it. We wear the bracelets, right? We see it everywhere. What are you doing to solve the problem? And how many people are you solving the problem for every single day? Are you out there, boots on the ground, talking to the people who are affected by it? Are you getting a phone call from someone sitting in the VA parking lot? Because I am sitting in the VA parking lot with a gun in his freaking hand, at 3:00 in the morning who had asked that day to be put in inpatient, and they said, no, you don't qualify. Sitting in the freaking parking lot, called the 988 number, called the suicide prevention hotline, got hung up on twice, and then calls me because I'm the last resort and this person doesn't want to die. Is that what you're doing to solve the problem? That's a broken system. If you're making billions of dollars and you're supposed to be solving a problem, how many people did you talk to? How many people did you stop from committing suicide? What programs are you putting out there? And I call people on their shit all the time, because if you're just bringing awareness to it, we don't need you. Get out of the way and stop wasting our money, because we can actually do something about it. We can get a bigger team. We can get more phones. We can get people who actually care about our veterans, who want to solve the problem. So yes, that's my answer.
You've opened it up for me now. I am disgusted by all of these nonprofits too. And they're out there and they live and die on their gala numbers. How much did we raise? Oh, that's a good photo. Take it, put it out there. All right, so now we need to go on a block walk and make it look like it's staging. It's all staging. When you have to make $5-10 million in donations to even begin to help veterans, that's disgusting. They don't want to solve the problem. It's almost like being in Congress. They don't want to solve the problem. They want to grandstand. It's like big pharma. We don't want to solve the problem. We need to keep you comfortable enough to keep being a patient. And I'm not a 501c3. I'm not a nonprofit. I'm none of that stuff. But I'm exhausted, and I am disgusted every single day on the amount of phone calls, emails, and text messages I get, because I was a victim of VA medical malpractice. And I did something about it, and I ended up passing some laws that protect veterans after they have suffered mightily through the hands of the VA. And they look at me as their last resort, as they look to you as their last resort. And I've been on those phone calls, and I am regularly, as well as the emails from wives that reach out to me that are absolutely desperate. And I say, have you contacted A, B, C, and D? Yes, 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 yes. Any help? Nope, 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 and nope. Why do you think I drink this? Nope. Because nobody is willing to freaking help. The only people that are willing to help are folks like you and me who don't get nothing for it. We're doing it for the good of the country. So we're doing the job of folks that are being paid big money in this country, and they're failing the people, they're failing the veteran community, and they're failing first responders because they want to keep it alive. They want it. They want to keep it alive. They don't want to fix it. And I've had guests on this show that have taken their lives that have never shown any real signs of it because they're hurting inside, and they don't want to get down to the root cause of it. And I just ran to be the VA secretary because I'm angry. And I ran because I will actually fix stuff. Well, of course, they picked some politician like they always do. And he'll go in there and grandstand, and he'll have 5,000 people working for him that are saying, oh, we're doing this and that. No, we're doing this and that, but it's still going to be the same VA that we've always had, and I literally had put together a bunch of pages, and I mean, I'm talking a straight up, and it's all back here too, true change, true reform that would matter to veterans, and not just, oh, look at what we're doing today with all this money and this and that. You know what? It doesn't take a whole lot of money to be empathetic. And to show a little bit of love to folks that are going through some horrifying traumatic times in their life. It doesn't take much to sit veterans down and to go through some really basic steps to improve the quality of their life. But no, it's us. We are their last lines. We are their beacons of hope. And they're not getting it anywhere else. And that right there just makes me sick. It makes me sick. So we are definitely cut from the same cloth when it comes to that, because I have absolutely, I don't even have the words for it. It bothers me. It really does. It bothers me. Because we have so many veterans.
It's fuel for my fire. Like every phone call, it's like, because I am not a licensed therapist intentionally, because if I were a licensed therapist, I would have to follow all the, all these rules. If they want to call me to court to testify against one of my people, I would have to do so if I'm a licensed therapist, and I refuse to do that. I don't keep records of my client conversations. There are no recordings they can call on. I've never, the people that I work with need absolute and complete and total faith in me that what they say is absolutely and completely between them and me. So the only way I can practice the way our people need me to is to do that. So, I mean, I have all the qualifications and then some to be a licensed therapist. It does my people no good for me to do that. So we live in the gray area between, which I always say, we're a stopgap organization. We fill all the holes because that's what we're constantly doing. We're adjusting to fill the holes. And I try to play nice with the VA, but when I have a client that needs to be seen once a week and they get to see a therapist at the VA once every 3 months, and every 3 months it's a new person, that's not healing. They can't tell their story to a new person every single time and get nowhere, because there's no moving forward if you're constantly just doing an intake. It's impossible.
Here's my biggest problem, right? I literally have a blueprint to fix the VA, because I have 7 years of stacked emails. I'm not an attorney. I'm not a 501c3. I'm not a business. I am them. I am simply them. I am a damaged veteran that I mean, went through the worst of the worst, and they look up to me for that. And they automatically say, I can trust this guy because he'll understand. There's not a lot of folks that will understand. So they pour their hearts out to me. And then I do an after actions report after I speak to them. And a lot of the times they just want someone to listen to them.
Right.
Especially the spouses. The spouses become so desperate, and I could feel it. So that's not fair to me to be able. I already have my own problems in my own life, emotionally, mentally, and physically. But now I have to take on theirs. But I feel like I've been called to do it. And it's not fun to bring in all that trauma and to pack it all in a way that I can help them. Because I can't just read the email and just, I'm sorry you're going through that. I know I know exactly how you feel. Have a good day. I don't respond like that. Like, I take it all in, and then I have to digest it, and then it brings me back to my own problem. And then it's like I'm reliving my own post-traumatic stress, if you will, from everything that I went through. But I'm going to give them some good sound, friendly counsel.
Yeah.
And that's all they're looking for. And so many of the people that I talk to, a lot of them, Vietnam veterans, they don't rate anything. You really got to be like post 9/11 to get a lot of good benefits. And those folks aren't computer savvy. The wives are like, oh my God, like I don't know what to do. And then you also get a lot of those folks that are post 9/11 that are trying to get the help from all these 501c3s, and their phone just rings off the hook, and they can't be seen, and that money isn't being dispersed. I have seen some veterans, a few, reap the benefits of some new homes, but they've lost an arm or a leg, and those homes are adaptability homes, and that's great. I've helped several veterans. I think about 4 of them get in to a homes for our troops. But when it comes to the needs of everyday veterans, I do not see that gap being filled at all. Zero.
Nope. No. And it's really hard because, and you know this too, being a small nonprofit, and we're just in our third year. We have been under 50,000 every single year, right? And my husband and I actually put over 30% of our own personal income into making these things happen that we do. We fund our own nonprofit because the community doesn't fund it yet, but we do it because it needs to be done. So the amount of time and money and effort that you spend on these things that you're doing to help the community because it just needs to be done. And you see that and you have no choice.
Yeah.
We'll always ask what drives you. I don't know. I can't answer that. I have to do this. There's no choice. There's no question. I just knew and I do it. If that's following the voice of God, if that's following my passion and purpose, I don't really care what drives me. I am driven to do this and it just needs to be done. And if no one else is going to do it, then we're going to be here, right? We're going to answer the phone because if we don't, what's the price? People die.
We are the same. Oh man, we could talk for 24 hours, I'm sure, on this, on some of this stuff, because I'm so deeply rooted in this game. And like I said, it is not a game I want to play because it's scary. It's frightening. It's dishonoring folks that put it all on the line for this country, that made a solemn promise to them. And there are so many out there that are getting the bad end of the deal. And
it's a crisis. It's a crisis.
Yeah, yeah. And when they go and get help, the doctor isn't there. The clinician didn't show up. They can't get through. I had a friend that I think it was his 1 year. It was his anniversary. I think it was yesterday or the day before yesterday, Sergeant John Toombs. I'm good friends with his father, David Toombs. It was January. No, it was November of 2016. I want to say it was the 23rd, when he lost his son in a VA parking lot. And that right there would begin a series of events that would happen at the VA, because I believe they're doing it as a form of we need help and we're not getting it, and so I'm going to show the world exactly what these folks are doing to us. And I'm not here to call out the VA and say it's all bad. It's not all bad. I'm just saying that there's a lot of room for improvement, and we're not seeing it. And it needs to happen, and a lot of that is in the mental health field. I mean, you can't kick a man who is suffering from post-traumatic stress and is literally living a crisis event every single day. You can't kick him out after 90 days because he's not better. Keep him. You absolutely did such a disservice to this veteran and his family that is irreplaceable, because you needed to make room for another bed for another veteran to come in that hasn't seen a day of the program yet. And you think that this one here has been in for too long, or he didn't wake up at 7:30 because he's so heavily medicated. And now you're kicking him out of the program because he's waking up late every day. How dare you? And again, it just goes on and on and on and on and on. And
yeah, the medication conversation, that's an entire whole nother show.
yeah. It's you and I, it seems like we could do, a lot of neat and unique things together. And, like you said, I don't know why I do it. It's just a calling, it's like, I didn't have a me when I needed a me the worst. And, and just making a me available. I mean, and that's like a Bible thing too. And I'm not a very religious man, but I do know that Jesus talks about, hey, look, just make yourself available. You don't need to spend, all day on it. but just be available. Just show you care. And that's what it's all about. And you could save a life by just maybe spending 10 minutes with somebody. Again, it's getting these veterans, and not just their veterans, but their family members, through these, moments of crisis. Now, we have Thanksgiving coming up. We have a few minutes left. Please share some words of encouragement in hope to veterans out there that might be lonely this holiday season, or really just anybody out there that might be going through some bad times, maybe remembering someone that they lost, and them having to go through these times of happiness in a very grieving way. What can you offer our listeners today?
Holidays. Well, Brian, you know this too. Holidays are when everybody's super excited and there's all this joy and all this family and all this stuff going on. And most of the world doesn't really realize that for a lot of our military and first responders, that the holidays are actually the hardest. It's the worst time of year. Like we're gonna be busier over the next 8 weeks than the entire rest of the year combined. Yeah. And the reality of that is the holidays reinforce the loneliness. There's a lot of time associations where really bad things happen around the holidays anyway. So people are struggling, and recognize that, just broad sweepingly recognize that the holidays are not happy for everyone. So this is a time to really reach out and reach in to your network, to your friends, to the people that you know who may be going through the same things as you are. And I know you hear it all the time, connect. And so many of you guys don't want to do that because for whatever stigma is around it, or you don't want to be seen as weak, or you don't want to be whatever it is, you don't want to be a burden to other people, which I hear all the time. You're not a burden to other people. The person you reach out to is probably going through something similar and really needs to connect with you as well. So you guys are your best resource. You guys, when you connect to each other, when you lean into community, when you gather, despite not wanting to go and be with other people because you're in that dark place, you're in that moody place where you're just like want to isolate and withdraw, do the thing you least want to do and be together. Gather together, be together, talk about whatever. You don't have to go deep. The biggest human needs we all have are to be seen, heard, and accepted. And no matter what the circumstances are, that's what you need. So do that. Be seen, heard, and accepted. Be where you can have those things. And I'm going to speak for you, Brian, too. We will listen. Our phones are open. We will listen.
How can people reach you, Krista?
I give out my personal cell phone number. I know people think that that's crazy. You can find me at battle2be.org, BATTLE2be.org. You can message me there if it's non-emergent, if you don't need someone right now. If you need to talk, do not hesitate. My cell phone is always on. The only time I don't answer, and it's not a crisis line, the only time I don't answer is if I'm with another client or I'm on a podcast like this. 907-982-4955. And again, I will do my best to answer. If I can't answer, I will call you back.
My phone number is public too. It's on my website. 951-294-7259. People say, oh, you're crazy to do that. Well, that's probably why I get a lot of calls. And I've probably saved a lot of lives. No, not probably. I know I have, because they text me. Yep. They email me back. The moms, thank you so much. My son or daughter needed to hear that. Again, we're doing the job of folks that have sworn to do the job, and they're failing at the job that they're doing. And that goes left, right. I don't care what party affiliation you are in. You have all failed.
Yes.
And they should all be ashamed of themselves. There are a few good ones out there. But again, it shouldn't take a private citizen to go in and beg members of Congress to act in good faith. And that right there is what I'm sick and tired of, because it doesn't need to be this way. doesn't need to be this way. You want to know why military recruitment numbers are down? Because they see their, you think my kids want to join the military? Oh, they're scared to death of it. Not scared to death of boot camp or to go out and fight. But what they put their father through post-service. And that is a very bad optic for a kid to be grown into. I mean, that's all my little girl knows. She's 16 or about to be. And 8 years is my anniversary this next month. She was 8. That's all she knew. 8 years old, seeing her dad die or on his deathbed and nearly dead. I mean, I lived in a dead state. Yeah. And, and she has anxiety now, because of that. And I hate that, but the cool thing about it is she calls me her doctor because we have this special relationship, because she grew up going to the hospital with me. She grew up decorating my walker that I had for so many years. And she always was in my room. And we hung out. So we have so much special memories. But I know that they were also very traumatic for her. But she was there for me, even when she didn't. I think even when she couldn't handle it herself, she was still there. And I remember vividly, and I don't ever talk about this publicly, maybe my first time, but my daughter used to pass out sometimes at my appointments because I think she would have such bad anxiety. And I'm in the chair, and they're looking at my back and my neck and spine or whatever it may be. And she's sitting there passing out because she was afraid that something might happen to her dad.
Yeah, nervous system shutdown.
Yeah, and I still see those memories of me seeing her that way, and it destroys me inside. But Krista, listen, wow, what a great conversation. And, and I think there needs to be more of these conversations, not just conversations, but actual action out of the conversations that we're having. And I know we touched on a lot of different topics, but I'd like to have you back whenever you'd like. And we can really dial in on specific items, if you will, on how we can treat and how we can help and how other folks can become engaged in dealing with crisis events and how to move on after suffering life challenges and going through hardships and grieving. So I think that's very important for everybody to have a little bit of experience in. Because look, let's face it, life is tough. It's not easy. And the more assets you have at handling those life events and challenges, the better you'll be coming through it on the other end. So again, thank you so much for joining us today. And I sincerely appreciate everything that you have added to this program, because you definitely added so much life value to so many folks out there that may need it.
Thank you. And I'd be happy to come back.
We will have you. Get your calendar ready, because we're going to be having a lot of Krista, I believe, because we definitely are coming from the same battlefield, if you will. Battle2Be. What's Battle2Be stand for?
It does stand for what you think it does. The battle to be healed, the battle to be home. And when I say the battle to be home, I mean fully home and present and connected with your life as you know it. And then when we talk about trafficking, it's the battle to be loved, the battle to be safe, and the battle to be free. So yes, wow. We're all on a battlefield.
I am so glad I asked that, because I'm just thinking like a beekeeper, because I literally had a beekeeper on my show a couple of weeks ago. I'm thinking Battle2Be, right? I'm thinking bee, but no, the battle to be healed.
Yes.
I love it. That just put an exclamation point on the show. I think that was it should have been my first, but hey, Save the best for last, right?
Right. It's the mic drop you needed.
Yep, there you go. Listen, you have a great holiday season, and we will definitely be in touch.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, there you have it, folks. Wow. Miss Krista with Battle2Be. The battle to be healed, the battle to be saved. Wow. That was a good one. And I'd like to think that every single one of our podcasts are absolutely just perfect, right? Just great. And oh man, such good information and stuff like that. But this one here is going to save lives. And that's, a big calling of mine, as well as Krista's and so many other people out there that aren't attached to nonprofits or whatever it may be, that just want to help out of the goodness of their heart and for the good of the country. We need more folks that are willing to give up a few minutes of their day, or maybe, just a quick phone call or an email return to somebody could save the life of a veteran or of a family member, because of the crisis that they are going through at that specific time. So that was a good one. And I would definitely encourage everybody out there to share today's podcast, because it's one of those that I believe every parent needs to hear as well, because we covered a lot. We covered children growing up, identity, high schools, trust, trafficking, drugs, military, veterans, saving lives, post-traumatic stress. Folks, we covered so much here. And this is why I want to have Krista back to kind of go through a lot of these different categories, to really dial in the specifics on how we can treat, not diagnose, because we're not doctors, but how we can look at something visually and say, I think that I could help with this, and help in a giving way, in a friendly way, not an attorney way, not a doctor way. And it's sad we got to explain this in today's world because everybody's so happy, but that's just who we are, right? We want to help people. And it's funny, the people that say they want to help people are the ones out suing people. Riddle me that. Folks, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the program. It has never been easier to listen to this podcast. We're on Facebook, Spotify, YouTube, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and X, even though I don't know if I'm going to be on X anymore. There's just too much garbage on there. It's just all hate. I had to walk away a little bit. Too political. But I'm doing better now. Simply search Today with Tally. It should populate, and you can start to listen. We're going to be doing a lot of these mental health podcasts through the holiday season. Also, learn more about me and my personal story over at briantally.com. That's where my phone number is too. briantally.com. Folks, remember to stay inspired, stay encouraged, stay motivated, and always stay in the fight. Until next time for the Today with Tally podcast, this is Brian Tally. Good night, Semper Fi, and God bless.